I remember my first job and it was so boring. I was just a secretary for my school district's like summer program. I was like making copies and I don't know. I don't know what else you do. Pizza's
We're
here.
filming.
Cut. 1, 2, 3. Post Show and Tell with Dr. Ken.
Welcome to Post Show and Tell with Dr. Ken. I'm Joz, your host, and this is my guest co-host.
Hi, I'm Alice Toy, gadget geek and mom of twins. This episode is about Ken's physical. Joz, can you remind us what that's about?
This is a fun episode. Allison finds out that Ken actually hasn't had a physical in a long time, even though he's a doctor. So Allison forces him to get a physical, and so Ken tries to get around it by having Julie just sign off on doing it. But Julie's a professional. She doesn't let him slide like that, and so she takes him through the motions, actually giving him a physical, which is awkward for Ken because it's a coworker. That's the part of the show. But then over at home, Molly is trying to make some extra money to go on a skiing trip, and she is having a hard time holding a regular job, so she has to find an entrepreneurial way to make some money by causing a little bit of trouble at home. So, I think a lot of this episode is revolving around this physical, and Ken he's a bad patient, even though he's a doctor, he's like the worst patient, right? But I think a lot of it is that awkward situation where, they're obviously medical professionals and they can, be professional, but it's still a coworker, and it's like, you're kind of like seeing your coworker in a context that you don't normally want to see. Have you ever been in a situation where you were at work and you had to deal with somebody kind of like out of context? Or
I actually had a situation where we had a pretty high-level executive, and I was working on a case for a relative of his, and it just became a little bit awkward because I had dealings with this executive and having the knowledge of stuff that was going on with this relative of his, so it was very awkward and a little, trying to maintain that professionalism, and I like to think that I did, so it was fine. But
I remember there was a situation. I was working for a TV production company, and I really tried to keep myself out of the, kind of like the content of the show, because I was working in the marketing side of things. But I had a family connection that was a really good subject for the show. So I decided to make an introduction, but I took myself out of it just to keep myself out of it and not to involve myself too much. But it's always kind of like, I always feel like I was like walking on eggshells, and I think about things like that where I'm really clear about the lines of like, what line should I cross and not cross. So I felt like, a lot of it comes out as humor in this show, but it's like really, if I was a doctor and I had to give my coworker a physical, I think that'd be super awkward.
Definitely.
So one of my favorite scenes in this episode is where Clark is trying to prank Damona with the pizzas at work, and he sends the pizzas to the office, but he pays for them, and they're fancy gourmet pizzas. So Damona is like, "Oh, great, it's free pizza," and she offers it to the staff, and she's like a hero instead of being pranked. So we learned that, like, of course, he's terrible at pranking, but it backfires on him. Have you ever had a prank backfire on you?
I actually had a friend pull a joke on me, April Fool's, his favorite holiday. He was helping me move from my very first apartment, and a mutual friend who was kind of helping with the move as well calls me and tells me he's been in a car accident. He was getting off the Hollywood Freeway, turning on the loop, and he's been on the way to the hospital. And it freaked me out. My best friend, and not a cool joke.
Yeah, that's not a cool joke.
Not cool. But have you had one backfire on you?
I don't know if it was backfire, but I know like a lot of the pranks in my kind of experience revolve around food. And so we used to go to those like Japanese buffet bars where they'd have that sushi laid out, and then they have the big bowl of wasabi. And it's always fun to try to convince somebody who doesn't know what wasabi is that is a bowl of guacamole. And, and then, that's always funny until the point that somebody starts crying when you've eaten a whole, spoonful of wasabi, ends up in tears. So it's kind of not cool, but yeah. Have you ever had anything, or have you had something happen recently?
Recently there's a local restaurant in the area, a Guatemalan restaurant that I love. And one of my favorite dishes there is this macerated black beans dish, garlic, yummy. And so I actually took an order to go after I had my meal there, and they pack in those little white clamshell tubs, and they spread it in there real smoothly. Looked like a piece of chocolate cake. So I took it home, left it in the refrigerator, and my son goes into the fridge, opens up, chocolate cake, digs into it, like, this isn't chocolate cake! It was so funny.
So I remember when I was a kid, I went to a pizza place with my dad and my brother and his friend. And this is one of the few times that my dad ever pranked me. But I remember like kind of getting up and going to go fill my soda. And when I came back, my pizza was completely covered in pepper. So I was really angry, and they were playing it straight, like, oh, we don't know what happened. That's just the way your pizza came. But I was really angry because I could not eat my pizza like that. So I got up to get napkins to wipe off the pepper. And while I was gone, I unwisely left my food unattended again. And then my soda was completely filled with pepper. And I was really angry. I was really pissed, actually. And I was like, why is there pepper in all of my stuff? And my dad just starts snickering, and he's just like, aren't you drinking Dr. Pepper? And he just thought that was the funniest thing. And my brother and his friend thought it was hilarious. So anyway, those are a lot of jokes and pranks in my memory revolve around food.
We had the opportunity to speak with Suzy Nakamura on the set.
We get to see Allison, be really concerned about Ken's health, almost from a mental or like a health professional perspective.
Yeah, and I think we make a lot of assumptions about health professionals, like a lot of professions, like a car mechanic must have a really great running car, right? That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so you're like, oh, if you're in if you're in medicine, that you must really take care of your health. And I found out from Ken, who's a doctor, that a lot of doctors just kind of blow that off, and it's sort of it's common knowledge that doctors make the worst patients, So I feel like it's topical and it's true, the fact that Ken blows off his own health,
right?
And we have another, like, I don't like to call them fights because they're so fun to do, but when Allison and Ken butt heads,
right?
It honestly, it always comes from a point of like frustration mixed with love.
Of course.
And they had another frustration mixed with love discussion about his health in the kitchen, and that's where I feel her frustration comes from, because she does say, like, I don't want to raise our kids without you. There's
right.
There's a real concern, about him taking care of himself. And then she reiterates a version of that, when he apologizes in the bedroom. But I think that's important, right? You forget about your partner.
Right.
It's almost like a selfish thing to, like, blow off your own health. But then when you have kids and you have a partner, you realize, oh, I have to do it for them,
for other
too.
people,
Yeah.
right? I know. I think when you are in a relationship, you kind of have to realize you're not just living for yourself anymore.
Right. Yeah. When you're single, you can skydive all you want. But
in that episode, I really love it because we finally get to see Ken as a patient. Mm-hmm. After all the abuse that he's given to the patients that have come through his little doctor's office, right? We see Ken as a patient. He's not a great patient.
No. And it's fantastic when Kate says something like, I'm going to tell you what you tell your patients, which is, don't be a friggin' baby.
That's one of my favorite lines, and the way she delivers it is so funny.
Yes, yeah.
Every single take I saw her do, I just was like busting up laughing. But what I love about that scene with Dr. Julie and Ken as the patient is that the only thing that gets him to behave is the threat of Allison.
Yeah.
Is this her cell phone number?
I mean, it's funny if we think that he's afraid of her. That's funny, but it's also like, I think he knows she's right. So that's part of it too. The comedy comes from, like, I'm threatening to tell your wife, like, a tattle.
Yeah, but I think he should be a little bit afraid of her because she is totally right. And I don't think I would really want to push Allison to really make her really mad.
No, she's good-natured. But there was another line in another episode, I have no idea, but he said something like, he says to Molly, well, your mom's not here. No, she's not here, is she?
Right.
Which I thought was really funny.
I think that was the drinking episode.
Yeah. So I do love that dynamic, just the idea that he is kind of like.
You're right, like Allison is very good-natured, but I really think that there's like an edge that we haven't gotten to see yet, and so I think I really love all the characters, I really do, and I think you just like when I get to talk to you guys and see you guys like do the work, but it's just like these characters, I'm falling in love with them every week, and I fell in love with them even more with these things that they're doing and the things that they're saying.
That's good to hear, because as actors, it sounds, this is going to sound really accurate, but you know, when you're developing a character and you live with this character and you work on this character, you have to love the character, otherwise nothing's going to translate that's, you know, lovable or appealing. Even when you play bad characters, there's something about this character you have to love. And there's this television saying that no one's going to love your character as much, not television, but acting saying no one's going to love your character as much as you do. So it's nice to know that other people, you know, connect with our characters and find something universal or familiar with them.
Well, I really think that's one of the appeals of the Park family. It's a very lovable, even though they're quirky and funny and outrageous and
flawed and imperfect.
I actually think that that's part of the appeal, is that they're not like these perfect TV, you know, models
Right.
of something that's not realistic. You know, I mean, I don't think they make characters like that anymore, but you know, if you go back and think about like the Happy Days kind of family looks so perfect, right? Like at least on the surface level, and there's no.
It was a different kind of conflict, whatever or
Right.
problems that they had to overcome or
and
solve.
There's no sense of like, you know, like these people are fake. I mean, I just feel like they're real people, and
Oh, good. That's good to hear. We feel like they're real people too.
well, there's a lot of things that I think that writers are doing where they're taking like, you guys as like. You as actors and your kind of real life personalities and inserting them into the script. Like, I actually think there's a lot of like, when I walk and talk with Albert, like I see that in Dave. I
Yes.
mean, he's definitely acting, but there's definitely a lot of, now that the writers are getting to know you guys as people and putting that parts of you into the characters. Do you feel like there's anything about like Suzy that gets put into the Allison character?
I feel like there's parts of like my personality that can stand up to a personality like Ken's character, but also Ken. Not stand up like in a challenge way, but go toe to toe.
Right.
And so I feel like that's what makes them a good TV couple, is that they're sort of equal and they complement each other.
All right.
I don't know how much of Suzy is in there, but I feel, yeah, there's parts of me. Yeah, maybe like the Chicago part. It's like, what? You know, like that kind of stuff. Like that comes out.
I see that. I do see that.
Yeah.
Well, it's because there's like a lot of things where Ken is like, you're like, what? Why? What's going on?
Yeah. She'd be the first person to be like, that doesn't make any sense, what you're saying.
In this episode, we finally find out Damona's last name is Watkins. Joz, has there ever been a situation where you kind of knew somebody maybe for a long time, maybe not, so that you just didn't know, you only knew them by first name or nickname?
I think that happens to me all the time. So, I mean, I've been online and people know me by Joz. And like, they just didn't even know like my real first name or my last name. And I hid it for a long time. But you know, it's Facebook that ruins everything. Facebook just shows you everything. So that was the point. At the point that Facebook kind of came up and became popular was when I could not hide my last name. But a lot of people would be like, I don't even know what your real name is. Actually, you know what? Ken Jeong didn't know what my real name was. And I kept teasing him because I'd meet him at events and I'd interviewed him a lot of times. And he'd be like, what's your name again? I was like, you know my name. And he's like, no, I don't. I only know Joz. And I was like, that is my name. And so anyway, so I mean, even Ken was fooled for a while and he didn't realize I was actually very comfortable being referred to as Joz. What about you? Do you have a story like that?
I actually have a girlfriend who recently got married, and she knew her husband is Jay. Great guy. And she was telling me the story that they went to file for their marriage license. And as he's filling out the paperwork, she's looking over his shoulder, and he wrote that, and your name is Claude? And that's how she found out his real name.
So in this episode, we see Molly trying to make some money for her skiing trip, and she is having a really hard time keeping a job. I'm trying to remember when I was a high schooler and like how hard it was to like make money on your own, you know? And I mean, my first job was super boring. I was just like a secretary at my school district's summer program. I like made copies. I don't know. This is really boring. I mean, do you have a more exciting first job story than me?
You know, it's funny, in hindsight, it was a scary story, but I remember when I was about 16, one of my first jobs, I was working at, it was a temporary receptionist position at this little trendy hair salon on Melrose. So I went in on a Saturday thinking, this is a really cool place, all these cool people coming in. And so I went in the back to get supplies or something, and the hairstylists are back there all like smoking away, and it's like, that freaked me out. I'm 16, I'm like, I'm not coming back here.
You didn't?
I did not.
There was another job. It wasn't a first job, but I remember I was at UCLA, and you know, like they put ads up in the Daily Bruin for all kinds of things, and there was a balloon shop that, you know, like balloon bouquets and balloon
Animals. And
yeah, whatever. So I remember going down there and like doing blowing up balloons all freaking day, and my fingers the rubber and latex on the balloons like took the skin off of my fingers. So I was like, I can't work here. I worked one day and my hands are completely torn up, and I never went back. So so this is a good time to ask our audience, what was your first job? Let us know in the comments, tweet at us at Post Show and Tell, like us, subscribe to us. Thank you so much for joining us, Alice. I had such a nice time chatting with you.
Thank you, my pleasure.
See you next time.
Bye.